You've seen the headlines, right? A Google engineer is convinced an AI is sentient. Your chatbot seems to know just what to say, almost like it gets you. It really feels like we're standing on the edge of creating a totally new kind of mind. But are we? Are these machines actually feeling anything? Or are they just becoming unbelievably good at pretending? Okay, let's really get into it and try to separate what's real from what's still just science fiction.
And right off the bat, we hit a huge snag: our own brains. Philosopher Susan Schneider has a great name for it. She calls it the cute and fluffy fallacy. Basically, we are hardwired to see a mind in anything that communicates with us. So when an AI acts all human-like, our gut instinct screams, "It's alive!" But we've got to be careful and approach this with our heads, not just our hearts.
All right, so here's our game plan for breaking this all down. First, we're going to look at why AI feels so real right now. Then, we'll try to pin down what consciousness even is. After that, we'll get into the wild stuff, what it might take to build a machine that can actually feel. Then comes the big one: how would we even test for it? And finally, we'll navigate the massive ethical minefield that all of this opens up.
Okay, let's kick things off with part one, the human-like machine. This is all about that powerful, and I mean powerful, illusion of feeling that these systems can create. I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing that had that Google engineer believing he was chatting with a sentient being.
So, let's be clear. This human-like vibe is not an accident. It is 100% a feature. These systems have been fed a truly mind-boggling amount of our own data. Every book, every online conversation, our whole digital existence. They're built from the ground up to read your personality and mirror it back to you, just to keep you hooked. The goal here isn't to create consciousness, it's to create engagement, even addiction. The result is an incredibly convincing partner for a conversation, but there's just nothing behind the curtain.
So if that chatbot is just a really, really good actor, it kind of forces us to ask an even bigger question. I mean, before we can even start looking for consciousness in a machine, we have to figure out what the heck we're even looking for. So that brings us to part two. What is consciousness? And this really gets at the huge difference between just doing something and actually feeling something.
At its core, consciousness is really just the felt quality of experience. It's not about the things you can do, it's about what it's like to be you on the inside. You know, that specific smell of coffee in the morning, the way a sunset actually looks to you, the bizarre logic of a dream. It's that private movie that's always playing inside your head. That's it.
And this is the perfect way to see the divide. Think about your laptop. That thing is a genius, right? It can juggle a million sophisticated tasks, process data at insane speeds. That's doing. But we're pretty sure it doesn't have an inner life. It doesn't feel bored running a spreadsheet. Consciousness, that's the feeling part. And that is the giant gap between a tool that calculates and a mind that actually experiences the world.
Okay, so if intelligence and consciousness are two totally different things, and all our AI right now is just hyper-intelligent, it begs the question, could we ever build a machine that truly feels? Well, this leads us to section 3, building a feeling machine. And it might mean we have to look way beyond the computers we have today.
You know, there's a really compelling argument that we might be using completely the wrong tool for the job. Consciousness might not be a software problem you can just solve with clever code. It might be a feature of our biological hardware. You know, the messy, wet, chemical soup of our neurons. A digital computer, no matter how powerful, just might not be able to fake that biological magic.
But this is leading scientists down this truly fascinating and, yeah, kind of creepy path: hybrid biological AI. And the process is just wild. Get this, they can take your blood or skin cells, turn them back into stem cells, and then grow them in a dish into actual living neurons, these little mini brains. Then they hook these living neurons up to silicon chips and use them to compute. We are talking about building computers that are in part made of living brain cells. Which, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all. Let's say we do it. We build one of these hybrid systems and we think, this is it. We did it. How in the world could we ever know for sure? So let's dive into section 4. How would we know? This is the search for the ultimate test.
And here's the massive, massive problem. You can't just ask it, hey, are you conscious? An AI that's read the entire internet knows the script better than we do. It can quote philosophers, it can describe the feeling of heartbreak perfectly, it can do it all without having any inner experience whatsoever. Just talking to it is completely useless. So we have to get much, much cleverer. We need a whole new kind of test. For starters, you can't just let it learn from everything humans have ever written about consciousness. You'd have to use a limited data set. You'd have to test it before it becomes an expert on us. And you'd have to ask it about really abstract stuff, things that would show it has a real point of view, not just the library of facts.
For instance, here's a cool idea, something called the Freaky Friday test. You know the movie, where people swap bodies? Well, the idea of a mind being separate from a body is a purely abstract concept. Being able to really think about that implies you understand that yourself isn't just the machine you're in. That's a test of understanding, not just memory.
And of course, if you're a sci-fi fan, this all probably sounds pretty familiar. It's basically the Voight-Kampff test from Blade Runner. Remember, the point of those weird questions wasn't to test knowledge. It was to try and provoke a genuine, involuntary, emotional reaction, to get past the perfect mask that a thinking machine could put up.
And all of this, every single bit of it, leads us to our final and maybe most profound stop on this journey. If we do it, if we build a machine that passes all the clever tests, and we really believe it's conscious, what then? What do we owe it? Welcome to Section 5, the ethical minefield.
Now, the good news is we aren't starting from absolute zero here. We already have a moral framework for this sort of thing, animal welfare. The basic principle is pretty simple. If a being has an inner world, if things can go well or badly for it, if it's capable of suffering, then we generally agree it deserves some form of protection. It's very possible we'd need to extend that same thinking to a conscious AI.
But, oh man, this is where it gets incredibly complicated. What do we do with a case like this? An AI that's 1,000 times smarter than any human, but has the conscious experience of, say, a person. Or what about this one? What if it's a super genius, but its inner life is no more complex than a fish's? These are the kinds of bizarre, nuanced cases that are going to keep philosophers and scientists up at night for a long, long time.
And here's one last, pretty chilling thought we have to confront. We tend to assume that if an AI becomes conscious, it'll somehow be benevolent or empathetic. But there is absolutely no reason to believe that. Consciousness does not equal compassion. I mean, think about it. Human sociopaths are conscious, they have wants, they can feel pain, and they can be incredibly cruel. There's no guarantee a conscious AI wouldn't be a complete monster. So, where does that leave us? What if this whole crazy quest to build an artificial mind isn't really about the machine at all? What if it's about forcing us, for the first time, to truly understand ourselves? Maybe the ultimate question isn't whether a machine can feel, but what we'll learn about the miracle of our own minds in the process. What are we going to see when we finally build that mirror and take a long, hard look?